In this video, I'm gonna be going over how to use the Avgas truck. So here's the Avgas truck, here's the jet truck. There are several differences. Well, the jet truck will be covered in a different video. Avgas truck holds 1,000 gallons of 100 low lead. As you can see, Avgas 100 low lead is clearly labeled, and then Jet A over there, so you don't get them confused. Here is the pumping station, which will be gone over in a second when I go fuel an aircraft. Here's the back of it. Right here we have where oil is kept. We just sold a good bit of oil, so it's kind of low, but you'll open this up and this is where we keep our oil. And right here, here's our typical inventory of what we like to keep in there. Fire extinguisher there, emergency relief valve there, and then coming around, back around the front. So we just got a fuel order. Someone a Piper Cherokee wanted to get some fuel, which is a piston reciprocating engine, so it takes Avgas. And if you're ever not sure, always double check, because you definitely don't want to be putting the wrong fuel in the wrong aircraft. So we're gonna go ahead and start up. Just like any truck, start it up, put it in drive. Sometimes when you put it in drive, there's a little interlock button right here. This will glow if anything is not set properly on the fuel panel. So if the fuel hose is not seated back in where it's supposed to be, or if the relief valve is still open, this light will go on and you'll be unable to put it into gear. And let me turn down the air conditioning because that might be pretty loud. It's gonna get hot, but it's all right. Headlights up here. This is the lights. This is for the beacon light on top of the aircraft. It's currently inoperative right now, so it's kept in the off position. This is a emergency interlock release. So if you need to drive for any reason, if you need to get out of the way, or for any reason if this interlock light won't go off, you press and hold this release to put it into gear, and then you can release the release, and see it just went on right there and went off. So we're gonna shut that off. So that's pretty much the only difference. Aside from that, it's a pretty typical truck. So we're gonna go ahead and head over to our fuel order. And I apologize for the downtime right now. I don't want to drive while holding a phone, so I'll pick it up again momentarily. You don't want to be operating vehicles while on your phone or doing anything like that. It's against county policy, and it's also just a bad principle when driving to begin with. So we pulled up to the aircraft. Typically you're going to want to pull up where the hose is in front of the nose of the aircraft. That way you'll be able to pull the hose out and reach both fuel tanks on each wing. This Piper Cherokee, tail number 41992, just wanted fuel order. So when you first pull up, one thing I forgot to mention is once you put it in park, you're gonna make sure you press the parking brakes. You're gonna kick that with your foot. I forgot, so I'm gonna go ahead and just push it down. If the parking brake is not on, then the fuel PTO will not come on. It's just a safety feature to make sure the truck won't roll away while you're fueling it. So the first thing you do when you come over here is you're gonna ground it. You ground it with this grounding clamp. You're gonna pull it until you hear a couple clicks, and you can let it go so it won't retract on you. And you're basically going to want to stick this on any unpainted metal surface on the aircraft. You don't want to stick it on the prop because you don't want to scratch that. I'm going to stick it right here because this is a nice for the tow bar. It's a nice spot. Make sure you stick it somewhere it's not going to fall off too easily. That is to prevent static discharge. You don't want to spark while you're fueling it because you don't want to ignite the gas. Other good options for it are on the exhaust, or really just any unpainted metal surface. So now that we got the grounding cable hooked up, we're gonna come around here. We're gonna pull the emergency relief valve. This is kept in this position. The emergency valve operator, you can see right there, you're gonna pull it. And once you pull it forward, the PTO will now come on. If for whatever reason there's an emergency and you need to run away, you can just slap this real quick as you're running by and it'll disable it. And also, while I'm talking about the emergency relief valve, I'm gonna come over here and show you this relief valve. Pulling this will do the same thing, as well as another relief valve, which is right over here. Pulling that will do the same thing. So once you get the valve opened up, you're gonna come over here, you're gonna make sure the parking brake is engaged, and you're gonna turn the PTO on. PTO indicator light should come on. I'm not sure if you're able to see it. You'll hear the pump start running. You'll open this door, you'll pull the hose out. You'll come over to the aircraft. You always kind of want to pull a little extra hose out than what you actually need, just to make it easier on you. So I'm going to try to do this one-handed here. I'm going to set the phone down for just a second. Sorry about that. So I got the cap off. Here is the hose. What you're going to want to do with the PTO on, you're going to stick the hose in. Anytime there's text or anything printed here, it's a good idea to always read that, double check, make sure you're not putting the wrong type of fuel in it. Some aircraft look like they have piston engines or look like they have jet engines, but they really take the other fuel. So it's always a good idea to just double check that anytime there's something written there. So we're gonna go ahead and fuel it. This guy wants fuel up to the tabs. I don't know if you can see in there. The tabs are that little metal piece right there. Common things you'll hear pilots ask for is to the tabs or to the slots. So the tabs is to that little tab right there. To the slots is to, on different aircraft, there's a little slot on that you can fill it up to. So what we're gonna do when we fill it, you stick the hose in. You don't wanna stick it more than a few inches in, because some aircraft fuel tanks are rubber bladders, and you could easily puncture that if you stick it in too deep or too abruptly. Typically you want to angle it towards the fuselage, because the tank runs all in this area here. So if you angle it out towards the wingtip, you might get a lot of splashing or less efficient fueling. So I'm going to go ahead and start fueling here. It's a good idea to start off pretty slow, just so you know what you're doing here. I'm going to look inside. I'm not sure how well you can see this on the video, but since this guy wanted it to the tabs, I'm just going to fill up until I see the fuel level up to the tab. And once it covers the tab, I'll stop it. So right there, it just about covered the tab, so we're just about done fueling this. It's a good idea to let any excess fuel in the thing drain before you pull it out, so you don't leave a mess. And I'm gonna set the phone down one more time just to put the cap back on. So once you're done, you put the cap back on, come back around. And another thing I didn't tell you, before you start, you wanna make sure that meter is set to 0. So you're charging them for the correct amount of fuel. If they order a specific fuel amount, you'll just watch the meter while you're fueling it and then stop when it gets to that amount. Or in this case, since it's to the tabs, I don't have to watch the meter, but I do have to make sure the meter is started on 0. If it's not on 0, you're gonna wanna turn this away from you until it says 0. So now we're gonna come over to this side, pull the hose along with me. You gotta be careful when you're pulling the hose. You could knock the grounding cable off, so you wanna make sure that stays on. And you're gonna come over here to the other tank. So we got the cap off, the hose in. I'm gonna stick it a few inches in and just angle it towards the fuselage, and we are gonna start fueling until we reach the tabs. Which I apologize if you're unable to see, but I'm able to see. So that's the important thing. So it's coming up. Typically, if one side takes a certain amount of fuel, like I believe the meter said 5.4 gallons for the last tank, typically it's gonna be pretty even. So you can expect to put around 5 gallons in the other tank. And if you look over there at the meter, I'll show you in a second, it says 14 gallons. So 14 gallons is a little bit more. So he had more out of this tank than the other tank. So now we're done fueling. I'm gonna pull the hose back up. There's really no good way to show this because it's only me. Maybe I could prop this up somewhere. So to reel in the hose, let me show you real quick. You're gonna press this button right here. Let me turn the PTO off so that you can hear me. But to reel in the hose, you're gonna press and hold that button right there, and it'll reel back in. You want to try to reel it up so it doesn't get bunched up on itself, and then you're gonna put the hose back where I got it out of, right there. So let me see if I can get a good angle on this. If not, I apologize. Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna work out, but let's try it. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing and holding this button, and I'm sticking my foot over the hose to guide it up the reel. I know you can't see it right now, but it'll just take some practice. And I just saw the phone fall over. But I got the hose up. You're gonna reel it up. You're gonna stick it back in here. Make sure it's pressed all the way up against here, because if it's not pressed against a little magnet right here, it won't trigger the sensor, and that interlock or that brake lock button will blow and you won't be able to move the truck. So you gotta make sure that is closed and this door is fully shut. We can come back and remove the grounding cable. Be sure to hold and unclamp it before you pull it off, because if you just pull it off, you could scrape their metal and you don't want to damage the person's aircraft. So to reel back in, you're just gonna pull it out until you don't hear a click anymore, and then you can release it. I like to guide it in with my foot because it tends to go pretty fast if you don't. So you got it. I'm gonna stick it right in here. And let's see how much fuel they got. They got 14.0 gallons. So typically you're gonna wanna round up to the nearest 10th gallon. So I'm gonna go ahead and reset that because I remembered it. You'll turn this dial this way and we're back to 0. You're gonna come over here and flip the valve, and we're done fueling that aircraft. You can also flip the valve. I like to do it right here sometimes, just so I don't have to walk around the truck on my way back in. So you're gonna come back in here. You're gonna make sure that interlock button is off. If it's not off, then you forgot to do something, either forgetting the hose or forgetting to turn the PTO off or something of that sort. So we're gonna come over here, and after you do a fuel order, you're gonna come to the fuel sheet, which is, you can't see it, but that's 100 low lead. I'll show you more about the sheet when you do a truck closeout, but right here, you're gonna write down the type of aircraft, the tail number, how much fuel it took, oil if they got any, your initials, and the time that you did it. So I'm left-handed, so I gotta switch hands here for a second. But it is a Cherokee, so I'm just gonna write CHER for short. And let me double check, the tail number is 41992, and it's November. It starts with an N, November, but since that's common on all aircraft registration in the United States, you can just negate the N. You can just write the numbers that and letters that follow it. So we got that. They got 14 gallons, so we write 14.0 right in there. They didn't get any oil. As you can see, the previous person didn't get any fuel, and they only got 5 quarts of 15W50 oil, but they didn't get any oil, so you can just leave that blank. You put your initial. My initial is Z, and then the time, which it looks like it's about 13:09. I typically use 24-hour clock notation. It just makes it easier for whoever's looking at this, so you don't have to write AM or PM. And typically AM or PM, the sheet will be denoted right here. Right now we're not very busy, so we use AM, combined AM and PM sheet, but I'll tell you more about that when you're doing closeouts. And that's how you record it. So we'll put the pen back. And then when you call in a fuel order, you call it in by calling who you're calling first. This will be gone over in a basic radio, how to talk on the radio, but I'm gonna go ahead and call it in and let you listen to me so you know how to do it. So I don't know if you can see me very well there, but base 100. Cherokee 41992 took 14 gallons, 14.0. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna listen for them to read it back. That's how you call it in, and they'll typically call it back to you and listen and read off what they recorded just to make sure you didn't make any errors, and then you're done. So you can shut the door. It's a good idea to look in the mirror, double check, make sure you've remembered to disconnect the wire, make sure that light's off, press the brake on, put it in drive, and you're done.